So, if you've ever tried to learn English, you have definitely run into this tiny two-word monster that causes just endless confusion. I'm talking about the phrasal verb. You know, they seem totally random, they make no sense, and you feel like they're just designed to trip you up. But what if I told you there's a secret logic to them? A code that once you see it, well, it changes everything. Okay, let's get into it and crack that code.
See what I did there? Just asking the question means I have to use one. Phrasal verbs like get over, or put up with, or run into, they're literally everywhere in spoken English. You just can't avoid them. But for anyone learning the language, they can feel like this endless list of exceptions with absolutely no rules.
And this slide right here, it just nails the problem perfectly. Think about a simple verb like give. Okay, now add the word up to it. Give up. Suddenly it means to quit something, but swap that tiny word for in, give in, and now it means to surrender or to yield. A completely different meaning from one little word. It's really no wonder these things are so tricky.
All right, so to really get our heads around this puzzle, we have to start at the beginning. We need to understand what we're actually looking at. What exactly is a phrasal verb?
Okay, so at its core, it's a pretty simple formula. You take a normal verb, what the linguists call a verb proper, and you just stick a small word on the end of it. That little word is called a particle. We're talking about words like up, out, in, off, down. And that combination, it creates a brand new chunk of meaning. But as we're about to see, not all phrasal verbs are created equal.
Let's start with the easy ones, the ones that make perfect sense. Some phrasal verbs are completely literal. If I say put up your hand, you can pretty much guess that means raise. The words put and up are, well, they're just doing their normal jobs. No mystery here, right? But this is where things start to get a little bit weird. Let's take hand in your assignment. Now, you can kind of guess the meaning here. You're physically moving your hand in the direction of the teacher to give them the paper. It's not 100% literal, but you can still see the logic. It means submit. And then we get to the deep end of the pool, the fully figurative ones. If you hear someone say, the mob boss is going to do him in, there is absolutely no way, zero chance, you could guess from the words do and in that it means to kill. The meaning is totally idiomatic. And this is where most of the frustration comes from. So you might be wondering, if they can be so confusing, why even bother using them? Why not just use single, clearer words? Well, it turns out there's this constant tug-of-war happening in English between different ways of speaking and writing. Just look at this. On one side, using the phrasal verb, you get, don't put up with bad service. It's direct, it's natural. It sounds like something a real person would actually say. On the other side, with the more formal verb, it's, you should not tolerate a second-rate service. It sounds a little more corporate, maybe a bit dry. The point is, choosing between them is a style choice. And this table lays it all out for us. Phrasal verbs, they're often way clearer, more natural, and feel informal. The downside? Yeah, they can make your sentences a bit longer. Now, those more formal Latin-based verbs like tolerate or extinguish, they sound very official, and they cut down your word count. But the catch is, they can sound kind of stuffy, or as the source says, too corporate and dry. So it's always a balance between sounding natural and sounding formal. Okay, so we've seen what they are and why we use them. But now it's time for the big reveal. We've been treating these verbs as if those little particles, up, out, down, are completely random. But they're not. They follow a secret logic, a code.
This is our first major clue. Get this. According to research, a staggering 28% of the most common phrasal verbs use just two particles, up or out. 28%. That is not a coincidence. That tells us there's a pattern, there's a system at work here.
And here it is. This is the key to the entire mystery. This quote explains that the particles themselves carry consistent metaphorical meanings that are all based on our physical experience of the world. So up isn't just some random direction. It's metaphorically tied to things like increase or completion or power. And down is tied to decrease and loss. The particle isn't random. It's the engine driving the meaning. Look at this. It illustrates the idea perfectly. The particle out almost always has to do with moving from a contained space to an open one. This works literally, right? Like when you throw out the trash. But it also works metaphorically. When a secret gets out, it's moving from being contained, known by only a few, to being out in the open, known by everyone. See? The logic is the same.
Okay, let's look at another one. This schema for down shows its connection to decrease or reduction. When you knock down a price, what are you doing? You're reducing it. When you boil down a really long story to just the key facts, you're reducing its complexity. The particle down is consistently doing the job of signaling less. Once you see this, seriously, hundreds of phrasal verbs just suddenly start to click.
So, what does this all mean for you? Well, understanding this hidden logic doesn't just make phrasal verbs seem less scary, it actually gives you a powerful new tool, a kind of superpower for understanding and using English way more fluently. All right, so let's boil it all down. What are the crucial takeaways? First, phrasal verbs exist on a spectrum, from the super obvious literal ones to the crazy figurative idioms. Second, using them is always a trade-off. Do you want to sound natural and clear or formal and short? But here's the most important one. The particles are not random. They are powered by these core metaphors. And understanding that particle, that is the secret to cracking the code.
So instead of thinking of phrasal verbs as some kind of annoying bug in the English language, we can start to see them for what they really are, a feature. They are this productive, dynamic, and just incredibly expressive part of the language that gives us all this room for nuance and creativity.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. What if these weird little verbs, the ones that cause so much trouble, are actually the most creative part of English? What if they're not something you just have to memorize, but a system you can actually understand and even play with? It's a whole different way to look at it, isn't it?